What's the worst scandal to happen at your school? Here I was thinking a guy hacking a teacher's account and receiving exam answers was a big deal. This thread proved otherwise. There was this guy in high school, pretty shy, didn't have too many friends, was always trying to fit in, kind of a poser, but in an insecure way. I'll call him Pumpkin Pie for privacy reasons. So one day, Pumpkin Pie had the genius idea to impress his class and make them like him more. To get the chem/geography teacher and retrieve the exam question from his school account. He used a USB stick with a program on it that retrieves saved passwords from most browsers. Chrome, Internet Explorer, Edge wasn't a thing yet, Firefox, etc. He waited for the perfect moment to plug it in. The teacher was taking a quick bathroom break. The whole class saw it and he made up some excuse. Don't remember what he said. Everyone kind of forgot about it. He checked the teacher's school account every day for a couple months, until finally the teacher uploaded the exam questions. Pumpkin Pie downloaded the exams, then, and this is where he fucked up, he gave them to people in his class that he liked. Those people started talking, and eventually people from other classes started asking Pumpkin Pie if he could get the answers for their class too. So then exams came around. He asked his classmates not to make it too obvious that they knew all the answers. Of course, they did. They all had way higher grades than usual. One day, he received a call from the school, which never happened before. Basically, they said, "Hi, Pumpkin Pie, you need to come to the school and talk to the principal right now." He asked, "Why?" And then his heart dropped as she said, "Because it looks like you committed fraud." Apparently, they saw the discrepancy in the grades and went looking in the logs of the teacher's account access and found that it was accessed from an IP address, which Pumpkin Pie also logged in from. Dumb fucker didn't even use a VPN. He then realized how much he had fucked up. See, he had just turned 18, which meant that he would be treated as an adult should the police ever get involved. Anyway, he went to school and had a really hard decision to make. Either the whole class would have to redo the exam, or he gave the names of the people he gave exams to, and only they would have to retake it. He chose the latter, and everyone hated him for it. Him and the classmates involved weren't invited to the graduation ceremony. Oh, and the hack teacher was considering pressing charges for privacy violation. Somehow, he managed to convince the teacher not to. He's so fucking lucky. Anyway, he was already insecure, and at this point, he just couldn't look any of his classmates in the eyes anymore. He ended up moving countries eventually, and now he uses a dumb alias online whenever he talks about it, something with a pumpkin. Not sure why at this point, since it's pretty obvious he's talking about himself. Baptist High School. Teacher got arrested for something like 400 plus counts of rape against the youth pastor's daughter, who was a freshman or sophomore during these incidents. They occurred in the classroom and on a bus he drove for Sunday school kids. He had a potential history of this stuff, but the school overlooked it. Creepy as fuck. It was 400 plus counts over 2 school years. Same girl. She was the daughter of another teacher and church staff who had already been abused by her grandfather in the past. So she was an easier target due to previous abuse. I feel icky saying this. She was a minor and obviously this is all statutory rape, but her history made her more willing to be used, which is why this went on for so long. She was sexually promiscuous in the community too, which isn't inappropriate in and of itself, but that sort of behavior is often the result of past trauma. Sexualized kids seem to think that acting in a sexual way somehow validates them as people, or gives them power, or makes them more adult. It is a coping mechanism. Someone took their power through sexual behavior, and they can try to take the power back by being sexual as a choice, which is its own issue. Not to be too graphic, but if someone forces you to perform oral sex on them, that feels like giving up power. Choosing to blow 100 more guys or one rapist 100 times to feel powerful when making that choice is a trauma response. You shouldn't have to do that to be in charge of your own sexuality. Note: I say this as a person with a professional career in mental health and as a survivor of sexual assault myself as an adolescent. I'm not trying to armchair QB here. I've lived this shit on both sides. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I will say I've had several hells worth of experience. It's a sticky subject because every sexual assault victim will have a fucked up view of sex and intimacy if they've had a history of sex being used to have power over themselves, or they use it to feel powerful. The situation ended when he was pretty much outed by another student or staff who left an anonymous letter demanding he resign, or they would go to the police. I don't think we ever found out who left the letter, but he resigned and someone told the police anyway, and he was arrested, charged, tried, sentenced, etc. The star football player was accused of raping someone in the bathroom. This ruined his life, and subsequently, he was in custody, juvie, jail, unsure which, for quite a while. All potential scholarships now gone, and no hope of a career in sports. This happened when I just entered high school. I didn't know the guy, but I saw him regularly. He was the school's pride and joy before the allegations. Time moves forward, and it turns out that he did not rape anyone. I'm unsure if the girl recanted her allegation or what. This was 15 plus years ago, so a lot of details are hard to remember, but it was too late. The damage was done. This all happened over the course of around 3 years. He ended up coming back to the school, unsure as to how or why, but I suppose he was just trying to pick up where he left off. He was just different. His face, his demeanor, everything. He was no longer the same person, and it was gut-wrenching. He was an incredibly nice and fun guy before everything happened, but once he came back, he was just a hardened asshole, always looking for a fight. He was conditioned to accept the street life, for lack of a better term, for a crime he didn't even commit, and even thinking about all these years later fills me with intense, equal parts sadness and rage. I hope everything worked out for you, Q. I was in 8th grade at the time, but the high school I would be attending the next year had a massive hazing scandal that made international news overnight. A group of junior girls trying to join the Powder Puffs went to play football against the seniors. Instead of playing, they got the shit kicked out of them, were forced to sit in a huddle on the ground while paint and animal intestines were thrown at them. And one girl even had a bucket put over her head as it was hit with baseball bats. I heard later on she suffered permanent hearing loss. Someone recorded it. This was before smartphones, so someone had a literal camcorder and released it to the media. The senior girls that were identified were suspended, many of them losing college admissions, and some parents were arrested when it was found out they supplied alcohol. When I started high school, we had to endure multiple school assemblies every year about how hazing is bad and participate in week-long seminars about being more caring and considerate of our fellow students. ETA. Holy social media response, Batman! Thank you for the awards, internet friends. For those of you that called Glenbrook North, you were very correct. Here's some more info about what happened for those of you curious. The school had news vans parked outside of it for weeks. In middle school, 8th grade, early 2000s, one of the hot girls sent a couple nude pictures to her boyfriend, and it wasn't long until half the school had them. Police ended up becoming involved to make sure any and all copies were destroyed. In high school, there was a little scandal involving the teachers in a teachers club called the Hot Tub Club. Faculty members that had hot tubs would host a weekly hot tub party with other hot tub owners. Turns out they were all getting wasted and having a swinging party every Wednesday. Somebody's spouse found out about it, and there was a huge exodus of hot tub teachers my senior year. The main people involved with the photo were reprimanded but not charged. The girl had to sit down with a counselor to discuss what happened, and we all had a big assembly to discuss the consequences that could happen if people shared those kind of images. It scared a lot of kids straight. Nobody was fired from the school being in the hot tub club. Teachers left because it was convenient timing with the opening of another high school, and there was constant babble about it. Just for clarity, this all happened in a small town in Western Canada. By the looks of my inbox, both are not uncommon occurrences. A guy in year 10 made a statement that the more compact a group of people are, the higher the death toll would be in a shooting. And we were genuinely talking about shootings, and somehow people mistook it that he was gonna do it. It was a joke, and everyone was playing along at first. Cut to 11 months later, he was in year 11. The whole school knows. Rumors got out, the truth was beyond fucking twisted and changed to something different. Kids were actually scared to come in. Parents were pissed, teachers were anxious. They had to search the kid. They kicked him out 9 days before he finished for good. Was still allowed to do exams, but had to do separately from everyone else. The police were involved, and it made the news, but the news article is complete fake and bullshit. He also wasn't allowed to prom. This was around 4 or 5 years ago. He told me he was doing a lot better now. He went to a better school for 6th form. He says while he has moved on with his life, he will never forgive the bastards. Also, we live in England and guns are much harder to get, especially to the average person who knows nothing about how to get guns. This girl accused a teacher who had been there for over 40 years of sexual assault right before her entrance exam. It was a really good private school, so you needed to take a test to be considered for admission. The accusations were investigated and were found completely unfounded almost immediately. I don't know what this girl was thinking, like maybe she thought it was a way for her to get some leverage and improve her chances of getting in or something. What made this scandal even bigger was the actions of the school. They kept him in the dark for 2 months after the investigation was completed, and were refusing to allow him back because of their insurance. Then, a campaign was launched by a bunch of alums, and he eventually got back to teaching until his death a few years ago. He was a great guy too. I had him for a political theory class, and he was really nice. He and his wife, aside from having children of their own, took in foster kids all the time, and he did a lot of other volunteer work. Sucks he had to go through all that because of a lie. This happened between my sister and brother graduating, so it would have been 1996 or 1997. The high school AG teacher started dating a student at some point. Everyone knew about it, and the parents consented. Our high school was, and is, small enough to still participate in senior trips, and the AG teacher went along as a chaperone when his girlfriend was a senior. They shared a hotel room when I believe the student was still technically a 17-year-old minor. At the time, I remember my parents being rather put off by it, but they still hired the guy as a summer farmhand. I don't remember if he was fired or stepped down, but by the time I made it to high school, we had a different AG teacher. They got married and had a child, divorced maybe 5 or 10 years ago. Their kid goes to our high school now. I don't know why it wasn't a huge deal at the time, but no one really raised a stink or threatened to call the authorities. Today, it feels like a case of grooming by a predatory farm boy. Reading these, and I think the scandals that happened at my school are minor in comparison. The ones I know of were a kid was busted hacking into the system trying to change his grades. I think there was a claim of computer addiction, but he wasn't allowed on a school computer for the rest of his time at the high school. A teacher was known for trying to pick fights with students. I called out his bullshit and he was given a slap on the wrist, but he didn't try it again after that. There was a student who was accused of having a bomb that was a complete fabrication. Outcome was ridiculously blown out of proportion. The guy was a bit of an outsider and had made a duct tape top hat. Someone made a sarcastic comment about him smuggling a bomb in it. He responded in the same level of sarcasm. Someone gets it in their head he has a bomb, and they decide to kick him out of the school because of viable threat. My former high school got on the news for having a history teacher lie for 4 years about being a decorated war hero. Guy claimed to have not 1, but 2 Purple Hearts, among other things, and has never even served a day in the military. Edit. I can't directly link to articles because of doxing, but I'm sure you can find it on Google. But it gets juicier. The truth came out because his ex-wife exposed him, sending evidence he was making it all up to local news stations and the school. Why'd she do it? The history teacher was having an affair with another teacher in my school. We had a lot of weird teachers at my school, but I think this story shows just how much the administration hardly vetted teachers. Like, holy shit. We also had a guidance counselor get the boot for being a racist, but that's another story that didn't get as much publicity. Two things, both in middle school. 1. I was at home on a Sunday watching the news with my mom when all of a sudden my 6th grade teacher's mugshot showed up, and it said that her and her husband were pulled over and police found like 6 pounds of high-grade weed. Led to a search warrant for their home, and they literally slept on an inflatable mattress. The whole house was a grow-op. She did look like a hippie, but I don't understand. She was not mellow at all. She was a bitch. 2. In 8th grade, one of my friend's parents had cancer. He thought it was a good idea to bring some of their meds to school and hand them out like candy. These were strong meds, and not all of them were pain pills. At least 5 kids overdosed. 2 of them had seizures. No one died, thankfully. When I was in grade 9 back in 2009, there was a whole school fight that lasted the whole break into the next session. There were even 3 teachers involved. The injury rate was ridiculous. There was over 15 broken noses, 2 broken ribs, and some stretched their optical nerve. A teacher and a student were having sex in the classroom, which had a window wall. A whole bunch of people saw and watched it. There was once a fight between 2 guys. The one guy DDT'd the other guy 3 times on the tiles. He lost his gold tooth. Someone stole it and came back a week later with the gold tooth in his mouth. Those are the first that came to mind, but a lot of other stuff happened. I went to an all-boys school. Freshman year, a junior accused the PE teacher of sexually assaulting her after hours in the locker room. He was put on leave and eventually got off on a technicality. Senior year, there was a freak snowstorm in April, during which the quietest and nicest stoner in our class went missing. A day later, they found his car in a ditch, and a week later, when the snow melted, they found his body. He'd crashed and, in his presumed high-as-fuck state, gotten out to walk for help with no coat on. He eventually found a telephone pole and sat down against it to rest and was believed to have frozen to death in the storm. Seeing his mom at her only child's funeral still haunts me. Teacher spilt acid on a girl. Science class, obviously, first year of high school. The whale of my teacher was demonstrating different acids and how dangerous they were. He then knocked a beaker over and it ran over the table onto a girl, and she screamed a bit. He shat himself and took her away. Got another teacher to clean it up. He wasn't teaching much longer in our school. I also heard that the girl's mom either sued or tried to sue the teacher and/or school. The acid had gone through her leggings and kinda mixed with her skin, so she had to get some skin grafts to cover it. This was 10 years ago, so I can't remember all the specifics. We had a computer teacher / football assistant coach who was just blasted all day. Had so many DUIs he had to get rides to work, but was the cousin of the superintendent, so he kept his job. Let's just say that when he crashed a student's car in the parking lot because he convinced them to let him borrow it, that was the beginning of the end of it. It was a small town. The scandal is the super tried to cover it up by trying to convince the kid to take the heat for it. To no one's surprise, the kid was not convinced. They let him stay on his super for another 2 years. This kid was taking his GCSEs, important exams in England, until you get older and realize they mean fuck all. Well, at an exam, some kids got onto his phone, went onto his notes, and found a 4,000-word document consisting of his sexual fantasies with other girls in his year. Clearly paid attention in English, as there was some clever wordplay, e.g. comparing his cock to some world-famous landmarks. The screenshots found their way into a lot of group chats. There were about 20-odd screenshots to put into context how long it was, and it basically acted as a vag repellent for the rest of his time at school. Some students broke into a local elderly reverend's home to rob him, thinking he was away. He sadly wasn't, and they proceeded to bludgeon him and his wife to death while they were sleeping with baseball bats and beer bottles. They were caught pretty quickly, and although their names legally couldn't be published because they were minors, everyone, including the local media, knew who committed the crime. Media caused a circus at our school for weeks, harassing harassing any student for comment. Many did because they thought it was cool. Although these three kids, 13, 14, 15, were known to cause trouble, no one ever suspected they would be capable of a double homicide. One year in exam days, they were trying to add a new method to prevent cheating where a man from the administration comes to every class before every exam and collects students' phones while sticking a sticker with a number on each phone and giving the same sticker to the students so he can get his phone after school without anyone taking someone else's phone that looks alike or something. This was working at first and a bit preventing cheating, until one day some guy sneaked into our high school and came as the man who collects the phones while he wasn't. He stole the whole high school's phones and went, ha ha! Some highlights. 1. The chorus teacher got caught looking at Lolita porn on his school computer. 2. This kid had nudes of his ex that his friends sent to a bunch of people in school. But he was 18 and she was 14 or 15, so he got expelled, and I believe he was charged with distributing child pornography. We had a whole assembly because of it where the cops came and told us they could see everything on our phones. 3. A kid in my grade and another girl, same girl as in the story above actually, had sex in the bathroom. I learned about it from my band teacher. Back in high school, the entire football team was almost expelled because one girl gave blowjobs to every single one of the players in the locker rooms. Supposedly, they were all in a circle and the girl was just going around to each person. The kicker? The girl's brother was on the team, and he let it happen. Everyone's asking, but it's my understanding that the brother didn't partake in it, but he was effectively forcing her to not stop until she was done with everyone. The team ended up not getting in any major trouble, but the girl was suspended for a good minute. We had a few, some standouts. Student hid a pregnancy from her parents. She ended up giving birth at home and killed the baby. Teacher sexually harassed students. Students engaged in sexual acts at the nearby church where all our masses occurred. And we, the student body, were then banned from having our masses at the church. A few people are mentioning some cheerleader who had been on the news. This was early 2000s. It did not have news coverage. It didn't even go beyond our school. And our school did not have cheerleaders. This was in Canada. Sophomore year, a girl in my grade passed on a solid yellow up a hill, hit a family in a car, and killed both parents and one of the kids. A week later, she's back at school in a brand new pickup truck and never faced any sort of trial or anything. Her parents were extremely large farmers in this small rural town and had influence in the local court systems, I'm sure. Oh, did I mention she excitedly showed off her new truck when she came back? Fuck you, Taylor. Not that scandalous. A friend's stuff kept going missing, like books and pens. It didn't stop even after multiple complaints from him, and the teachers didn't really care. His mom screamed at the teachers, and the principal did her own investigation and concluded that it was a boy who stole from that guy. The principal decided to call the male student's parents to talk to them. After a year, it turns out that the thief was a girl, and she yeeted the guy's stuff out the window because the guy was bullying her.